Let me just be straight up with you. You can't be meeting kids. You're supposed to be meeting the 15.
Disappointed mother.
Well, that's what he said.
Hello.
Hey.
Wait, you're not in yet.
Oh.
I know, but you can hear me though,
Cool.
right? Oh, okay.
Now we can, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
Cool. Hi,
What's
guys.
Hey, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm nervous.
You're nervous. Don't be nervous.
I don't want to start like rambling off like crazy shit. So I feel like we should slowly introduce people into what the experience was.
Right.
Here's
Ernie.
Like I feel like we should slowly introduce them. Everyone, are we live? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're live.
We are.
Hi. Okay, so hi. I'm sorry. I thought we were backstage. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is I think that today it would be really beneficial to introduce the experience of these schools and what they're like, and slowly get into the curriculum that dates back to the SYNANON cult.
Well, first of all, what's your name?
Let's talk about
What's your name? I'm not sitting here like
All right, sorry. Okay, my name's Laura Cline.
Yeah. Hey, Laura.
And I was emancipated in the state of Washington at the age of 15, where my family convinced me to go over state lines to Idaho. Once I was in Idaho, I was not in the jurisdiction anymore, and they were able to hold me on the side of a mountain in North Idaho at a boarding school called CEDU for 2.5 years.
How old were you when that happened?
15.
You were 15?
Yes.
Why did your parents send you there in the first place? Like, why do people send their kids to these places?
Well, it varied from children who lived with really elitist rich parents and were raised by nannies, and once they became teenagers they were just too much of a fuss for their rich parents to deal with, and they would not, like, some people that went there never even did drugs. It was like a drug rehab boarding school, like mixed together. For me, I had used psychedelics in the 90s. My parents found out about it, and basically because of the abuse in my own home, I was emancipated by a judge. With that being said, though, back to what I was saying, sorry, I'm a little nervous. I've never talked.
Don't be nervous. It's okay.
It's all good.
Okay, so it ranged from someone like me who had been a runaway for 6 months living with the Rainbow family to somebody who was like living in a mansion in Austin, Texas, and his parents just didn't want to deal with him anymore.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, in my case, I truly believe my parents sent me there because they were angry that I divorced them, and they wouldn't allow me to grow up in a regular world on my own. And yeah, so.
And that was at 15?
Yep.
Where did you live before the school?
So between being emancipated and so I was emancipated, I think, in July of 1996. And then August 30th, 1996 is the day that I was dropped off there and left by my sister and my dad. I lived with my sister in Olympia for a month and a half in between. And instead of my parents supporting my sister, taking care of me, they like starved us. Like they wouldn't give us any support. And my sister was only like 23. So they gave like my sister no option other than to trick me into going there. Because it was either that or we starved. Like, she couldn't support me, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, they dropped you off there. So how did the school start off for you?
Oh, that's the fun one. Well, it started off that I only knew I was going there about 3 minutes before I showed up. That was crazy.
When you were on the way, you didn't even know you were on the way there.
I knew something suspicious was up because my sister told me I could not live with her anymore unless I went on this trip to Idaho with her and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Which was, I don't know if it was better. Other kids got taken in the night by bounty hunters, so I don't know which situation was better, but they wouldn't let me look in the trunk, which I guess was full of clothes for me. I told my sister, absolutely not, I'm not going, because my gut, my instincts was like, no, why are we going to Idaho? And she told me, like, you can't live with me unless you go. So she made me go. And then as soon as we pulled up, I would have thought that they would have stayed with me to sort of like check out the school and stuff. But as soon as I hit the steps, they gave me a hug, said, I love you, and left. But right in between that, we started getting more and more like rural into Idaho. And we got on this really dirt road going to nowhere. And I finally said, where are we going? Because my dad had said it was for a Boeing trip. And then he was like, my dad was crying. And he said, we're taking you to a boarding school to live. And mind you, this is 3 minutes before I got there. And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I start freaking out. And my dad said, don't worry. They'll take care of you there. And they'll give you the medications you need. And then I tried to jump out of the car. My sister wrapped her arm around the top of me and kidnapped me for about 3 or 4 miles.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I showed up, and you're thinking like a boarding school, right? Like people can't be that mean. But the first thing they did was strip search me. It wasn't like, hi, I know this is hard for you. We're so-and-so. We're a different kind of school. No, it was go into the bathroom, take your clothes off with a student and a staff member watching me completely naked. And as I was naked, I had about like, of course, I had 5 to like 7 just like hemp necklaces on. You know, me and the hemp. But like, so they just took scissors and cut them off my neck. It was like, so part of like socialist brainwashing tactics is to strip any and everyone in the very beginning of their identity. Strip everyone of their identity and take any rights that they have as a human being away.
Yeah.
Were both the people watching you female, or did they not care? Was it?
They were female, but it was like crazy to be standing there like nude in front of 2 women that you don't know, and then they're like cutting jewelry off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was just wondering if they allowed males to view females.
That's really up for debate, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I'd be grabbing somebody biting their ears. Good.
I was such a young little girl, and I was like a hippie, so I wasn't trying to cause. I didn't know what to do. I was like frozen.
Yeah.
That was like initial arrival. I had like a tub full of like all my hemp spools and beads and all like my crafts, and they took that away from me. And like, again, that gave me an identity. They took it away from me, and they said they were sending it home, but I could get it back in like 6 months to a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people was familiar with the Paris Hilton things and what happened with let's just say supposedly happened with her. But I'm glad you're here to tell the full story about what actually happened, because that's really, really what a lot of people are in tune to seeing, because they're programmed and what actually happened and what did not happen. Mm-hmm. So, you can share some of that more going into it. How did it happen? Like, you was in this place. What was the next thing that happened? Like?
So, with that being said, I'm trying to see where like me and Paris Hilton's stories might be the same or different. So I'm kind of trying to feel out this a little bit. But so
let's discuss that this is a school that famous people's kids went to.
yes,
Right,
I was
right.
there with Rod
So,
Stewart's
and there was
daughter.
more than one famous
Yeah.
kid there.
Well, I was
Roseanne
trying to
Barr.
think because they exposed it on her, for that part. And what little bit I got to read about it, that's why I'm glad you guys were up here for that. So,
Right.
no, I just heard the couple famous names on it.
Yeah. So there was some famous people that went there for sure. And then basically the next thing that happened, just like just sort of to explain the kind of like regime that was going on there, that was like the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life. After they took all my clothes away, they put me in like khaki shorts, a bright blue t-shirt, and white Nikes. And it was really weird because I had to you couldn't go indoors without having your shirt tucked in and your hair pulled back if you were a girl. So when I walk in there, everybody else is wearing bright colored shirts and khaki shorts and their shirts are tucked in. I was pretty smart at 15. I instantly went, I'm in a fucking cult. Like, what the hell is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't like that. They did not like me, and they did not like that. And they did not like the attitude that I had. So, like, the two meanest counselors that were there felt threatened with my presence because a lot of the kids, as soon as they showed up, were crying and scared and cowering. They didn't know what to do. Like, it was instant degradation from the moment I walked in. I was sitting on a couch. One of the meanest counselors that was there, she was this white woman that was raised on the res, smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day, like 55 years old, just a monster. And oh my God, I'm like, whoa. Well, she must have thought she was going to scare me. I had like brunette hair with big white chunks in it. Like, it was the 90s. And she's like chewing her gum and she's like really scary and mean. And she looked at me and she was like, and I just walked in the door like a half hour before. She looked at me and said, "Why is your hair like that?" I said, "'Cause I fucking like it like that, bitch." Like, I don't know who the fuck you think you're talking to. Pardon my French. Sorry, I probably should censor
French
a
is
little
fine.
bit more.
It's okay.
It's all good.
I'm sorry, but the thing
Just be
is,
comfortable. I know.
Yeah.
I know this is uncomfortable. Laura, let me stop there and say Laura's never told this story ever publicly.
yeah,
So this is kind of a big deal that she's working up the courage to share something that is going to lead into other things about these indoctrination schools and these places that kids get sent off that have been abused or neglected or whatever. And they become problematic. And this is an elite school. It was closed down and for child abuse, but we'll get into later, like why that applies to what we're doing here.
yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. So go ahead and share.
Oh, so, I mean, I am a little nervous, so I apologize if I bounce around. And I think that's why we can, like, come back and do another live to sort of, like, expand on some things. But long story short, what I'm trying to say is that I was, and I'm probably going to piss some people off. I am going to piss some people off.
What else is
That's
new?
okay.
But
That's what we do.
basically, what I'm trying to say is I showed up at that school understanding I was in a cult and understanding that I was going to have to play a game to pretend like I was being brainwashed. And I also understood that in the beginning, I was going to let them know who I was.
Yeah.
And that's strong. So when you do that in that kind of situation in a cult, you're going to make the people in charge very angry.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're pretty much indoctrinating the students there, and
they want you to come in crying, weak, and broken.
Right.
So
Right.
they can be your so you can get Stockholm and think that they're your new family, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's easier to break you if you're already half broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
What were some of their techniques of breaking you guys?
Temperature manipulation, like blasting, and this was in the intensive workshops. Yeah, temperature control, extreme AC, extreme heat, sleep deprivation, food deprivation, and mass manipulation through primal scream therapy.
Wow, primal scream therapy.
Primal scream therapy. And they used a lot of John Lennon's music in these workshops. So those were some of the tactics.
I still can't listen to John Lennon music.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was they would get you to a really warped state of mind where you had no idea where you were, what time it was it day or night. They would black out the windows. It would be 9 o'clock at night. We thought it was 4 a.m.
Wow.
And so the thing about Paris Hilton that I do know is that, okay, so in this, let me just break down, like, and sorry again if I'm going in too many directions.
No, go with how it flows for you. We just want you comfortable.
Okay, cool. So I'm just trying to break down, like, the actual curriculum behind this cult. So it was Charles U. Diertz or something. I gotta look up his name, but supposedly the school is named after this guy. Dietrich. Yes, thank you. He was the leader of the SYNANON cult in 1958. They had something they called the game. The game was to put people in a circle and indict them on their biggest weaknesses. Humiliate them. And I wasn't in the cult in 1958, so I don't know what they did back then, but the game now translated in the 90s into what they called a rap. 3 times a week, all students were required to be in a rap 5 hours. 3 times a week. What's said in a rap stays in a rap, to the point where when I took something out of a rap by accident, I was put on what was called a full-time, where I was on bans from everyone. That meant I couldn't talk to anyone in the school. I was placed in isolation in plain sight and humiliated in front of everyone. When
you say humiliated, what kind of humiliation? And some of these people, they don't understand the rap and what all that is. Kind of, I know it's going to be hard, but kind of like go into that a little bit about kind of explaining in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, so like a rap would be a bunch of people sitting in a circle, and then outside of the rap, you're not really supposed to talk about your issues you have with other people. You would go into a rap, you would have to sit across the circle from the other person, and then, hey, I have an issue with you. I saw you doing this the other day. Or it would get to a level where people would attack, they call it attack therapy, and they would attack someone on their emotional state, like, you're not doing your work. There was a whole language there. So, like, doing your work meant you were doing your emotional work. People would indict each other, and part of, like, the brainwashing was people trying to look good for the staff so they didn't get in as much trouble. So they would turn on their friends, and screaming at other people was completely okay, like at the top of your lungs, as long as you didn't leave your chair. And the goal was to eventually get everyone in the room to literally, this sounds crazy, but put their head down between their legs and scream at the floor as loud as they could. And they called it running your shit. So like anything and everything you were angry about, they wanted you to scream about it. 3 times a week.
So what do you think that their goal was in that exercise for you guys?
That's where it gets tricky, because
dealing with your anger is good. You know, that's one thing, but
and I think
they did not do that. They wanted you to do something completely different.
Well, there's 2 different ways to look at it. You could look at it that these people were trying to do something good, and they were experimenting 90s emotional growth therapies that were like alternative, like maybe they had good intentions, all the way to something totally out there as the occult. And
wasn't that like their sales pitch though, that it was a good thing and they made it like
that, yes,
it was going to be beneficial in
yes,
the long term?
I could see how they can market it as a good thing. You know?
right, but they never told your parents that you were doing that. They marketed it to you as a good thing, because this was all like hush. You're not supposed to tell the parents that this is happening.
Yeah, they convinced you it was okay to keep secrets, but to behave this way.
Yeah, and then they would monitor your phone calls and or take your phone calls away.
Cynthia's got a point right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's to learn your weaknesses.
Yeah.
You think that's part of it? So
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Cynthia Hayes said here, it's to learn what your weaknesses are, so maybe they know what to exploit better.
That's all they were about, and especially with me, because I'm sneaky, and I never got brainwashed, and they hated me for it. And so, like, even when I was trying to be, like, I had one summer where I was trying to be the, really good kid and fit in and everything.
Yeah.
It made them so mad. They sent me to the psychologist's office where, like, she gaslighted me until I was upset, and then she forced me back onto drugs. They would force me onto drugs when I was like doing good or like actually normal. Then they would force me on so many drugs that I'd become a zombie because I was influencing other kids.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Well, even now, those kids that you went to school with, you guys kind of have a tight bond, don't you? Some of those people.
Yeah, there's the ones you have a tight bond with, and then there's ones that are completely brainwashed still, which I still love them. Like, it's not their fault. And I'm not trying to say that some of the stuff we did wasn't good, like, gardening, composting, learning those homesteading things and stuff. And I'm not trying to just completely throw the whole thing under the bus. It's not like everything was bad, but it's shocking now that time has gone by, because what all of the kids that graduated there or went there say is that place saved my life. It's like it's an indoctrination. They would try to make you feel like they would tell you while you were there, if you left, you would die.
Well, I saw someone earlier in the chat say that they went there for a couple of years or something, and they said it's not a cult. So,
Right,
and we're going to get a lot of people like that because they're that brainwashed. Sorry.
We got a whole new set of people commenting on this. I think we've already brought in some of the
well, it's going to, but it's going to tie into a lot that's current events, and I think when people think.
And that's when we're going to show people the correlation between the SYNANON cult, the game, and the raps at CEDU schools.
So go over real quick what you told us earlier on the phone. Where did SYNANON originate? Where did that come from originally?
So,
or the people from it?
Germany.
Yep.
The people from the guy was from Germany, and the SYNANON cult. Everything I've read says it originated in Germany, but started in the U.S. in like Santa Monica or something like that, somewhere in Southern California.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to the people that don't think it was a cult, because I was one of those people for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I told myself if I didn't go there, I would be dead. I told myself it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I told myself, but once I got older and smarter, and actually dug deep on the web into what was actually like, so whoever's saying it wasn't a cult cannot deny that Mel Wasserman started these schools. And Mel Wasserman was in the SYNANON cult, and he actually was indicted for being in a cult. So I don't know how to, like, I mean, if you don't want to look at the facts, that's cool. But
like in a court of law, indicted?
Huh?
Like actually in a court of law, he was indicted?
I believe so. And that's why he went to North Idaho to start the school I was at, because he started getting in trouble in LA.
Yeah. So they basically rebranded SYNANON as CEDU.
Yes.
To get out of all the legal stuff.
And so that's what I would say to people that say that it's not a cult is maybe do your research. And I'm not trying to be mean because I go back and forth too. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm overreacting or, you know, but the facts are there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of facts and credentials to back up all of this, that it was a cult.
Yeah. You can't just like ignore it.
So what was probably the worst thing you've seen either maybe you may have experienced or you've seen someone else experience while being there?
Well, one of the worst things that ever I saw was, well, I didn't see it, but I can't remember how long before I was there, but before I was there was a dorm and a little boy hung himself at the school.
Wow.
That was pretty bad. And then I think in these raps, because there were staff members, grown men, 40-year-old men, I personally never got called these things, but some of the girls, little girls, teenage girls in the raps, by a man, and I'm not going to name who he is because he's a pile, and I'm not going to do that to him, would be in the raps and say things like, you're nothing but a $10 hooker, or you'd sell your ass for a Laffy Taffy. That's my favorite one. Like, what does that even mean? But saying that to young women is pretty gross, you know? So that's pretty terrible things to say to women. Also, like, when kids would get in more trouble, they would stick them out in the teepee in the woods. Wow. Isolation in a teepee, and, like, there's no heat.
And how cold would it be there sometimes when they would do that?
Like -30, -20.
Wow.
And Ascent, so I didn't go to Ascent, but Ascent was a program. Paris Hilton was there with one of my friends, and that was like a teepee camping place where you were in the elements for 3 months. That's where they sent the kids who were acting up really bad. So they got like a whole nother level of like boot camp. And I've heard stories that teenagers were having to take sponge baths with ice water outside in a teepee in the middle of January in North Idaho.
Wow.
And that was up near Ruby Ridge.
Were you aware about what was going on at Ruby Ridge at all?
Not at all, no.
You were not? But that was your neighbor pretty much.
Yeah. So I was in Bonners Ferry, and then Naples, Idaho was where Ascent and Northwest Academy were, which were in the CEDU schools.
I remember you saying something about students got treated differently, you know, and like for their financial wealth of the family and things like that. And I think I remember you saying something about them dressing certain people up.
Oh, yeah.
About that?
Yeah, so it's sort of two different things. And I don't want to be offensive to anyone that had a lot of money that went there.
Right.
So, like, I'm not going to say there was like a huge, huge difference in the way that people got treated. But I do know that because my parents were upper middle class and not millionaires. And sometimes they would have a hard time making sure that the $60,000 a year was covered, because that's a lot of money in 1996. There was definitely like a difference I saw in the way that, say, the oil tycoon's daughter from Texas was treated.
Right.
The way, you know, because they're not going to worry so much when your parents work at Boeing, you know. Oh, don't get me started on the MK Ultra tactics. We're not
Get started, go for it.
Get started, go for it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what, you
What
guys?
this
I don't
is.
even know if we're ready to go to that part.
Okay, that'll be for another interview later.
Yeah, that's like really conspiracy theory, and I don't really, you know, like there is something on the fringe there for sure.
Well, you'll see that you're gonna get like you'll go back and read these comments.
Oh God, I'm
There
scared.
are people that support you,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Oh,
know
wow.
that this is real. You know,
And also a lot of that stuff now, it isn't like it was 10 years ago. You can look all that up. I mean, that's all, I don't want to say common knowledge, but it's pretty close to it, you know,
Well,
as far as
yeah.
MK Ultra.
yeah.
Wow.
So the other question you had was about them dressing people up.
Right.
Okay, I'll be right
So
back.
that was like the very, very, well, I explained the raps. So the other, like, just so I can explain where that happened. They had these things called profeets, and they were workshops, and they started at like one day, like one overnight, and then instantly went to like 2 nights, 3 days. No, sorry. I think most of the profeets were just overnight for the first year and a half. And then you would start going to a prophet that was 3 days. And then the last one was 6 days. The last one, you had to sign an NDA contract that you would never speak about it in your life.
Right.
With that being said, the prophets are where they used the raps, but it was more intense. The prophets is where they used the primal scream therapy. They would do theatrics, like they had us rewrite our own obituary for our own death. Like everything there was about life and death, life and death. So they were getting into some pretty crazy shit and really deep stuff for teenagers. And basically, it would start in the morning or like halfway through the day, go all night without food. 1 hour of sleep, air conditioning being cranked up when you're trying to sleep. I specifically remember being freezing when I was trying to sleep. So again, that's more sleep deprivation.
So this guy Dietrich, he signed a bunch of techniques. He designed a technique and a program pretty much of individual emotional breakdowns. He would make people have emotional breakdowns.
Yes.
And, you know, it was literally like pretty much just drive them crazy. I mean, it would actually brainwash them into doing whatever.
Yep. And when you are in that severely broken state of mind, disorientation, that is how they reach your subconscious programming. So when you're in that state, now they're putting messages into your head that you're probably not going to remember when you get back to normal because you were so like fucked up in the head at the time.
Yeah.
So his way of getting by that, he told everyone. I remember reading on this, and I remember talking a little bit about it. But there's some things that come up. This guy that we're talking about, Dietrich, he was a really, really. I'm saying, you know, he's a bad person. He's a really bad person. He's all about control. He's all about the control mechanism. He would put in people's head that they're doing it for the right reasons, and they're doing it for control and light. And it was like a self evaluate, like a self resident of yourself or something, like a new one or something. But what he was actually doing, it was actually what was the thing? Insight. It was insight producing experience is what he called it.
Mm-hmm. He said that we're going to take the psyche as far as we can to replicate an LSD trip. And then the other thing that he said for the reason he was doing it was to turn people into mystics to lead the human race into the 21st century. Whatever that means. That's crazy. I don't know, but that's what I read.
Wow.
So it's a lot of the new agey agenda stuff too.
Yeah, but it mixed with like old practices. And as far as dressing people up, like I'm never supposed to talk about this. And again, like my alumni and my friends, like people might get really mad at me, but like, in the Summit Prof feed, it was 6 days of this, 1 hour of sleep each night. And like on the 4th or 5th day, they told us we were going to be a character and that we had to dress up. And that was like, we were suspicious and we didn't really know where they were going with that. But I was supposed to be Tinkerbell. So I had to dress up like Tinkerbell. And I barely remember it because it was so fucked up. But basically, in front of everybody in the room, you had to stand up in front of the room in a costume. And then they would tear you down, like in a costume. Like I was wearing a short skirt and a leotard and little ballet shoes. And they were like, oh, yeah, you're effing Tinkerbell. You think you're effing perfect, huh, Tinkerbell? So, like, we were dressed up in these costumes to get degraded and humiliated and made fun of. And they were trying to say, like, our personality matched the negative side of, like, who Tinkerbell would be if she was, like, me, like, ew, like, you know? And I saw them dress people up as different characters, like the lion from Wizard of Oz or Glenda the Good Witch. And each of these students were then made fun of for the characteristics they showed like the weak, like, you know, it was really weird. And then after that, I just remember something about everybody was in a circle and like they had this music playing over and over and people were like, walking in a circle, like running in a big circle, and like my shoes kept falling off. And at one point they had me like lifted in the air and they were like moving me around on the ceiling. And I was so sleep deprived, I can't even still believe I remember that now. It was bizarre, you guys. Like I'm so embarrassed. I've never talked about this, but it was.
Do not be embarrassed ever.
Really weird.
You should see all the comments. People are saying you're amazing, you're a beautiful soul, you're brave and strong. Like you're gonna be happy when you go back and read all these comments.
Yeah.
You guys are sweet.
Oh yeah. You've got a lot of support here.
A lot of support in here.
I see a lot of people. It's supporting Predator Hunter Nation, and we thank Tina and Xander also for coming up. I mean, trying to teach them how to use StreamYard wasn't easy, folks.
But we got it. Yeah, and that's the whole point of this. It's not about me. It's not about Paris Hilton. It's about the fact that there are people in these places right now. There's people there right now. And so, like, Rocky Mountain Academy was bought by a company called United Healthcare Systems. They make billions of dollars every year, and they are known for holding people at the same. Well, they're not at that property anymore. They got shut down because of that, I think. But basically, what they were doing is they were taking people that were not even insane, medicating them, and collecting Medicaid or Medicare, Medicaid for those students or whatever. They were collecting money from the state, and it ended up being fraud. So it's like you said, they keep being moved around and rebranded. Mm-hmm. And it's a problem in our country right now because the other part of the school is that we had to chop the wood to heat the buildings. We had to garden the food. Like, we had to do the dishes. Like, I don't want to say child trafficking, but when your school is $60,000 a month and the parents don't know the abuse that's going on, I feel like it teeters on that, you know?
Well, that would be labor trafficking.
Well, it's labor trafficking.
Yeah.
It is a form of
slavery.
slavery.
How much was it a month? How much was it a month?
I think it was $5,600 a month in 1996. Or wait, no,
56?
no, it was 60,000 a year. So I'd have to do the math. 12.
Okay, 60,000 a year. That's still a lot of money. I mean, that's like an income today. That's income today for someone.
Yeah. It's a lot of money, and it was at the time more than Yale or Harvard.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
But they had convinced these poor parents that your kid is in trouble and we're going to help them.
Right.
So I always felt really bad for the kids that didn't do anything wrong other than be born, and their parents just wanted to be kind of rid of them. I, on the other hand, I will admit I was a handful as a teenager. So, you know, my parents, I think, truly believed, because if my dad would have known the indoctrination that happened, he never would have sent me there, because he's all against that stuff.
Right.
But they were hiding it from the parents. And then if you tried to talk to your parents about it, then you were punished.
Yeah. So
Let me know what kind of give me a level of punishments. Like what kind of level of punishments was given out?
So I would say the worst kind of punishment I ever experienced. Well, there was a couple. Number one was they put me in a Dickies jumpsuit, and so we had a dining room that was huge, and 150 kids ate in there every day, and up against the walls were these booths. So they would use the booths as punishment. Anyone on a booth was in trouble. They had different levels of isolation for it. Like, they called them bans, but it meant that you weren't allowed to speak to people. So they would put you on bans from all girls, bans from all guys, bans from a specific person. Well, they put me on one with what they called house down bans. Sorry, I was looking at a comment. So the house down bans meant I literally could not make eye contact or talk to anyone in the school at all except for one person. And that was one of my counselors named Nicole Rowell / Nicole Perry.
So what would happen if you broke that? Say if you actually did make contact, they caught you, you was talking to someone, what would be a punishment for that?
Longer time spent in that isolation or removal from the rest of the population out to like a teepee or a cabin.
Hold on one second. It's Predator Hunter Nation, and no, we're not based in the UK. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so at that level, like if you weren't willing to cooperate with that, then they would completely remove you from everyone. But the worst part about the punishment is that you're not like locked away in a prison cell where nobody can see you. You're literally sitting in a corner where everybody knows she's in trouble. So you're isolated. It's the worst because you're isolated, but you're surrounded by people. And that is really humiliating and crazy. And the other rules with that was you couldn't sing or hum a song, like not even if you were alone. And anything you did to break a rule, like take a longer than a 5-minute shower, smuggle drugs, have sex, hum to yourself, sing to yourself, listen to music you weren't allowed to listen to, any of those things, they told you were what they called dirty. And the only way that you could cleanse yourself of the guilt of being dirty is you had to confess that you took more than a 5-minute shower or you kissed a boy, so. And then the other worst form of punishment is that because of my build and the fact that I'm skinny, I was in a rap. I was attacked by 2 women. They called me anorexic, and they compared me to prisoners in Auschwitz.
Right.
So
go ahead. Yeah. Now you talk about you're in this place now. How long of a time was you in this place?
2.5 years, from 1996. August of 1996 to March of 1999.
Okay, so during this time, after you got out of this area, got out of this place, was it hard to get out of the place, or did you have to reach of age, or how did that work?
There was one time that I almost broke into the expedition room to gather gear. I was going to go out the back to Mount Clifty and hike my way out. That was when I was on a full-time in a jumpsuit, because if you left the school, you had to walk down a road that was 9 miles long, dirt road. And once you got to the town, they would pay people money in the town to turn you in. So everybody would get caught going that way. Fortunately, I mean, I don't know, it was fortunate, but I never tried to hike out. I ended up staying. But when you turned 18, a lot of kids would get an extended guardianship or something. Their parents would do that, like make them stay after the age of 18. I personally I turned 18 in December of 98. Yeah, 98. And then graduated March of 99. So I just stayed those last 3 months because maybe to make my parents happy. Like maybe I thought like if I left or.
Well, I mean, you also don't know where you're going to go. And they've already beat down your, spirit and psyche so much. I mean, it sounds like it was, emotional torture really, in the most liberal way possible of torturing someone. Public shaming and ridicule, it can have disastrous effects on a child, and I mean, and it can stay with them for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Well, you talk about this, and it's every bit of it psychological. Everything is psychological. People don't think psychological problems can hurt you. Psychological can hurt a lot. I mean, it can hurt even more than physical, because physical actually heals after a while. Psychological really don't.
Exactly. And while they might not have beat us, they definitely put things in us that were long lasting. Our 5 years ago, the suicide rate of our alumni was 43%.
Wow.
And we lose people every year. Lots and lots of people lost a lot of friends.
Wow.
It's very sad. Some of my friends still live with their parents because they can't function. Schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, just PTSD. It's hard to undo the program out of your head after 2.5 years of the same thing. So
after that, how did you continue your life? What did you go on about doing? Obviously this has always had an effect on you pretty much.
It was very hard to adjust to civilian lifestyle when I graduated. There was no segue from living on the side of a mountain for 2.5 years, from the age of 15 to 18 when you're developing, learning how to drive and going to prom. I never had any of that. So it was just like taken from this cult and thrown into the real world. I was in severe culture shock is the best way to put it. And I was freaking out, and I would have explosive anger outbursts, because you have to remember, for 2.5 years, I was taught that it was healthy to scream when you're angry for 3 times a week, which I didn't always do the primal scream therapy, but if you didn't do it, you would get punished. So my brain learned that being I don't know how to explain it, but it's the PTSD. So it would go off like a switch. And it was like you said, almost an MK Ultra, where you don't know what the triggers are. You just know you're going to get real angry. I'm a lot better now, but when I first, very first, I'm talking when I first got out, I did not know how to control my emotions in a normal world.
Well, you're talking about the story. There's a lot of people who have actually went through places that's similar to this. It's actually similar to this, and they've been in trouble for these places, but they already got out of it, and they're kind of living their life in the way that they think they should live their life, and they thought maybe that's just part of the program until they start slowing down and seeing and looking back, and they're like, whoa, that was not part of what should have happened. That is not a healthy treatment. That is not nothing healthy at all.
And I think that's what everybody is in their own state of acceptance. So I can't get mad at people that don't understand the background. You know what I mean? Like, I can't get mad at people that don't understand it was a cult, because they're not ready to accept how hardcore that is. Like, that's serious shit, you know? And like, and they want to just go on with their life and leave it. I mean, it was 20 years ago. Like, heck, like, people make fun of me and say, like, why are you even talking about it? It was 20 years ago. Well, it's because 2.5 years of brainwashing and programming, you know, you can't just erase that. So,
well, imagine, you know, I hardly ever talk about my past experiences, but this, you know, it's something very similar, except for, you know, not being as much. Well, I mean, it was more mental abuse, but we also had physical. What happened to me was physical. A lot was physical, and, you know, even with my family and things of that nature. But we'll talk about that another time. But you know, but you're kind of bringing up stuff I remember. You know, they would set me and they made us listen to this god awful music, and I hated that music. And it was just like run over and over and over on loop all the time. And that's all you had to listen to. It was like they didn't have no radio. There was no, you were allowed not to use no radios. You weren't allowed to use anything. And it was on a speaker. It was coming in, and it was like, it was all, everywhere you went in this facility, it was there. But go ahead, finish.
no, that actually taps into the part where they used music as part of their programs and profits.
Like when I was a teenager, they threw me in a room, and I remember the big guy had his elbow in my back, and it was pressing so hard that it actually messed my C5 up in my disc in my back, where he pressed so hard it popped. And they threw me down on the ground, and they was holding me, and one of them had my arm holding me, and then they was trying to put my arm behind my back, and I was only 15, 16 at the time, maybe. And, you know, literally, they were just listening to what it was awful. And then I remember they give me this shot, and I'm standing up. All of a sudden, I'm falling, and I'm down, and then they just slam the door. And as they're slamming the door, you know, it's just like whang, and all you'd hear is whang. And then they would get you up in normal, just all the time in the hours of the night and everything. And they would take you down in these rooms, and they would just hold you down, and they would just like it was crazy.
Where were you?
I was in Corbin, I was in Covington, I was in St. Charles, and I was in Open Fort Somerset.
Was that like your family that did that, or?
No, it's a different thing. When I was 3 or 4 years old, I was kidnapped for 3 or 4 days, and then again it happened when I was 11 or 12 years old. We was took down in Atlanta, and we was actually, you know, we was rescued. I don't remember that hardly. I remember bits and pieces of it. We was forced in a trunk of a vehicle, and you know, I don't remember exactly what happened. I remember what's wild about that place is it was a child trafficking kind of thing. It was sold off. My mom, she used to go to like these little parties and stuff, and we would be in different people's houses, and they put the kids in the middle of a circle, and all the kids was in the circle, and then, you know, the adults was back. They was partying, whatever, doing whatever, and whatever the kids done, you know, you just play with the little toys or whatever. But sometimes people would come in and they had other things in their mind and stuff. You know, they would come in like they'd be drunk, and they would kick one of the kids. And, you know, I remember being kicked in the face a couple times. And, you know, even when you just look, you know, just if you look different, I was always dark skinned. So, you know, back in them days, there's a lot of race issues that's going around. A lot of people would, you know, do things. But when I was 3 years old, I was kidnapped, and they had these devil worshippers. They was coming around or something like that. They drive a white van. They would tell everybody that if you take a rock and hit a dog in the head or something and it kills it, you know, they'll give you so much money or whatever. Then they would take the dog and they would wrap barbed wire around its neck and hang it, and they would hang it off the bridge and let the blood drain off of it into the water. And then they would go down in the water and they would take glasses and they would let the blood catch up in the water and everything. It was just ridiculous. My brother problems first started, he would take kittens and he would break their necks, or he would just take and hang them in a tree and he would let them hang there. And when the water would come up, he would just watch the kittens out, or he would take a cat or a kitten and just throw it at a tire and show them that they could bounce off the tires. But then, you know, all I remember seeing is just like these people with like cloaks and shit, or like, I mean, I was a little bitty baby. I don't remember much about it when I was 3 or 4 years old, but you know, when we was 11, 12, I think it was like when I was 11 or 12, they forced my brother and I into back of a trunk. And I remember we had made a few stops. I didn't remember it until my mom had actually mentioned it, and it was only just about 5 or 6 months ago that happened. And I've actually got it on my phone. I actually put it on my calendar when I first heard about it, because I put a block in my mind about it. And I never knew I was going to be doing, you know, this stuff with human trafficking. Didn't even know that. And then all of a sudden it comes out that this happened. And so I start looking into it, and I actually meet the people. I actually go to the place that we was rescued. I had Atlanta PD, which I appreciate Atlanta Police Department helping me locate the area. But I was able to go straight to it. I remember how it was to go straight down into the tunnels. It's a building. I remember, you know, I remember that. I mean, I seen it in my head. I remembered it. And, but you know, that happens. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy what happens to children, and we need to really stick up for these people that are still in these places. And I think that,
like, we had a lot of people in the place they put me at. What happened is there was an accident. It was a big accident. My mom's neighbor didn't like me at all, and I was always a weird kid. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I was into martial arts, and I had swords, ninja stars, nunchucks. I was about 15 years old. I was going to school and everything, and I would train so hard. I mean, I would go down to Ralph's, and I would train so hard, boxing, martial arts, and just anything and everything I could get into. I was into, and I was always really athletic. I could play any sport. I could do things. But I was sitting. I didn't know what happened. They called the state police on me. My mom's friend didn't like me at all, so she was all the time getting us in trouble. So she called state police on me. Well, the state trooper walks in. I'm watching Saved by the Bell. I'm literally watching Saved by the Bell, and I've got a ninja sword, and I'm sitting there sharpening it. I've got all my weapons laid out. I always was a big collector. And he walks to the door, and he sees that sword. You know, he goes with his weapon, and I'm like, "Whoa, wait!" I never get it. The guy, he passed away a while back. We made amends, and we was good friends afterwards. But it was a big misunderstanding. What happened is he came down, and I was going to go with him. I was actually going to go with him, and I had one shoe on and one shoe off. And he had my arm, and he was pulling me up. And, I mean, as he did, I said, "Let me get my shoe, man." And I pulled back. When I pulled back, I resisted. Well, we just went out. He just grabbed me and had me. I didn't know what was going on. No words was even mentioned. You know, there wasn't no calm down, nothing. So the screen door was just right there. So when he grabbed me up, the force of it and me pulling back, we both went through the door. And as we was going through the door, we was rolling down the hill. Next thing you know, the police are pulling up everywhere, and they're getting out. And Mike jumps out. He's like, "Let me get my shoes on." He's going to run. But that just makes it more worse. I wasn't nothing wrong with me. There was nothing wrong with me at all. And then all of a sudden, when they take me out and everything, they throw me in a police cruiser, and they take me down to Harlan. And all of a sudden, I'm just sitting here. I'm scared. I'm not with my mother. I'm not with nobody. And they've got me in this room, and they've got, you know, you can't see nothing. And then the next thing you know, they're giving you this medicine and it's shots, and you don't know. I mean, as a kid, I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. And then when I wake up, I wake up in another town, another city, and, like pretty much almost another state. And then I'm watching the doors close, and I see my mom there reaching for me and crying. And I don't know what's going on. Nobody told me nothing. And as the doors close, I'm sitting here beating on these doors. And these people are grabbing me, and they're trying to get a hold of me. And I didn't know where I was at, didn't know who was around, and nobody talking. It was all about sports.
Yeah.
And then from there, when they was grabbing me out and everything, they throw me on the ground, and one gets on my arm, one jumps out here. They're trying to stick needles back in me, trying to make me go back out. And then the next thing you know, I'm seeing this needle come to stab me, and it's going, my brain's just looking at it. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? I can see it as I'm on the floor. Well, your endurance and your adrenaline's going to kick. Your adrenaline's going to kick to the max. So I'm starting to get up and everything. As I'm starting to get up, this big 300-pound dude just steps all on my back, man. And they're sitting there pulling me. They got my head. They're pulling me, and they're trying to restrain me, and I'm squirming out of it. And then finally, when I get up, they throw me up against the wall, and the guy just throws his forearm on my back, and it screws my C5, C6 up. But they give me the shot. I go out. This is on Christmas. This is around Christmas time. And just from there, I was just always, they had these things on my head. Even from birth. I had complications at birth. My muscle percentage was 88.9%. That means I would never run out of energy. They took a muscle diography test on me. A big old needle they had to stick in me and touch bone and get bone marrow. But, I know what you mean by that when you come to understanding what actually goes on. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. And for me, I had experienced physical abuse from the age of 13 to 15. And then I went to the school at 15 to the age of 18. So basically from the age of 13 to 18, it was physical and then psychological.
Was there physical abuse going on at the school?
I don't really think so. I think that I have heard, again, people will get mad at me for this, but I heard at one of the schools, and it wasn't the one I went to, but I heard that someone had gotten RAPED'd in a dorm. So I think there was some sexual stuff that might have happened behind closed doors. And I'm not trying to say that was at my school. I'm not trying to, right. I'm saying that this is speculation.
Right.
Because I don't want to say for sure that happened at one of these schools. I'm just saying that someone had told me that. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. And as far as like physical abuse, I would say not really. I think working, I don't know if that's abuse, teaching kids to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
just a lot of psychological stuff, mental stuff.
Yeah.
If you're making little kids chop wood while you're telling them what pieces of shit they are, that's pretty abusive. The chopping wood isn't abusive, or being warm, working to be warm isn't abusive. But what goes hand in hand with that physical activity, which is part of it too, they stress your body while they're stressing your mind,
right.
And it's not just about staying warm,
right.
It's about manipulative practices, to help, to mind control, a lot of people. And the Stockholm syndrome is real, and and a lot of those people who think they're happy after leaving a school like that are going to fall into abusive relationships and things like that, because they are Stockholm syndromed.
I can say though, there is a percentage of people that went there that they seem to do okay.
Oh yeah,
and I'm proud of them. I love them, and I don't want them to think I'm just saying the school is entirely we did have some good things there, learning to rock climb and hike, and there were things you could find in it.
You got your own hashtag. Look at that.
You got your own hashtag.
That is so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, there was things that get okay. For instance, what's going on in the world today. I am not going to say where I'm at with that, but I can say that after having all rights stripped away and then slowly handed back as if it's a privilege to have your human rights, I can't say I know the steps that are taken to do that. And it's the first step is to flatten everything and make everybody equal, you know? And then you start, and it makes me critically think a lot more things that are happening in the world now, living through that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, when I got sick in 2020, I was scared for my life, and it jump started me into doing as much research as I could, as fast as I could, in case like people didn't, you know, like I had this feeling that I needed to dig deeper. And one of the things I found out was that the Ruby Ridge incident.
Yeah. You discovered it was Ruby Ridge.
Yeah. I discovered that Northwest Academy and Ascent are directly across the valley from where Ruby Ridge happened.
Right.
And that's also where I hiked and summited a lot of mountains. And, you know, but the weird thing was, while we were hiking, they never told us that, like, hey, Northwest Academy is just on the other side. Hi, Luna. Just on the other side of that mountain. So, like, you're hiking around thinking you're totally in the middle of nowhere when really there's a school, like, on the other side of that ridge. So, very confusing. What I did find out, though, and I'm going to have to find the article. We can post it. But, like, basically what I found out, the plan was the guy up on Ruby Ridge, they were planning to kidnap Barbara Streisand's daughter and put her, not Barbara Streisand, sorry, Barbara Walters.
Barbara Walters.
Yeah. Her daughter, totally different. I was thinking about artists that should threaten to get off of Spotify, and it was Barbara Streisand. No, I'm just kidding. No, but so Barbara Walters' daughter was there at the time that Ruby Ridge went down. The plan was that they were going to kidnap Barbara Walters' daughter, put her in the side of a mountain for ransom. Because these people are rich, and these people that live up in the mountains in Idaho are not.
Yeah. Right.
And they hated the elite. They were extremists with guns and, you know, like homesteaders. And so the FBI goes in there and kills his wife and kills his dog and his son.
Right.
And takes all the guns. Well, I'm not saying that necessarily was 100% behind it, but when I found that out, that it was the same year. Oh, okay. I found out that it was the same year, and I take it or leave it. I'm not saying it's true. Like, conspiracy theories to me could be true or not be true, but I'm just quoting facts that before it happened, he was planning on kidnapping one of the elite's children for ransom. And then the FBI came in, so. Oh, thank you. I need you guys, because there's a lot of people out there that they want to silence the real truth behind this.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say Paris Hilton is trying to do that necessarily, but I think that there's a certain level of, like, keeping it on the surface that these are troubled teen boarding schools for troubled kids, when in fact, I think there's another layer behind this that goes years back, and another objective.
Right.
So, the plot of CEDU employees attending Rocky Mountain Academy, including the children. Yep. It's crazy. And so, like, some of the occult stuff, which I know people are going to totally come down on me for, but yeah, I don't even know where to start with that. But as far as, like, okay, if people understand how energy works, getting a lot of people to scream at that level can actually, it can actually, like, change the energy, right? And it is said that in the prophets, in the major workshops, and I'll send you the screenshot of it saying this, but it is said that 2 witches were in a different room facing each other doing Walden quotes or something weird on Ouija boards.
Mm-hmm.
So like conjuring energy through like human like pain, demonic pain, while using that energy to do like some type of occult, like witchcraft or something. This is speculation again. I will never say that this is all true because I don't know. Right. And but yeah, like this is total speculation. The other thing is I don't know what they did to us. Love you. I don't know what they did to us in the prophets because there's missing time, and that missing time was after. Can you guys hold on 1 second? I gotta do something. I gotta close the door real quick.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. So it was it's not just me, but a lot of us can't remember what happened between like the hours of like 3 or 4 a.m. after, because nighttime was when they would get everybody riled up and screaming, and it's like funny, it was around like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Dead time. So like they would
Move that up there for her.
They would do that, and then you know, like the preschool mats, like the blue preschool mats.
Yeah, like gym mats.
Yeah, we'd wake up on those in a different room. And I don't remember falling asleep ever. And some of the people I talk to, most of the people I talk to, they don't remember going to sleep either. We just remember waking up freezing cold at dawn.
Mm-hmm.
So like an hour or two of sleep. And then the huge conspiracy, which I don't believe, and it's just my imagination wandering, but when you put people in that amount of trauma, that's when people get adrenochrome. So I'm not saying that happened. I do not think it happened.
Right.
I'm just saying there's some weird stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
well, they also
harness energy. Do you think they harvested your adrenochrome? The answer is no. I don't think that. I'm just throwing out like the research I've done and the possibilities, and I'm not trying to say that's the truth at all. You know, it's just like something to think about.
Yeah. Well, and it could have been totally, conjuring and invocations. Hey, Larry has a question here on the screen. Larry Hawkins.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. He says, was there a playground with a spinning tire swing or merry-go-round? Split mind technique to divide consciousness platforms. Mind separation is common in indoctrination to servitude to narcissistic controller gaslighting tactics.
There wasn't, but again, we had to run in a circle for about 2 hours, and then they would lift us up. That's the only thing that I would say would be similar. Yeah. You know, and a lot of it was life and death quotes like love equals life, fear equals death.
Right.
If you leave, you're gonna die. Because of the way I came in off of like the Rainbow family and like just like kind of a little rough compared to some of the other kids, they would tell me specifically in raps in front of everybody else, you're going to be the first person to die after you leave. Like out of all these kids, Laura, when you leave, you're going to die even after you graduate.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like, they wanted to, so to this day, I live in fear of like, sometimes like, and if something bad can happen to me, or, you know, being told that's pretty scary at a young age. Like the real world is going to kill you. Like it's a scare tactic to keep you in their little utopian society, their socialist cults.
Sure.
You know, it's like that movie, the village. Just
Yep.
scare them so they don't leave, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's up, leave a way. People are asking if the school is still open.
Okay.
And it's not, but it's manifested in a lot of our modern day schooling, which we'll lead into later about that, because there's a lot to cover about this. You know, we really just want everybody to like understand and see you and know about this school, because it does pertain to a lot of other things.
There are schools
later,
like it too.
You know,
people in the chat alluded to a couple other places. That
yeah,
are
people
just
are
like
naming
this.
other schools that are just like this.
That are-
Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to say that what Paris is doing is using her name to get some change, which I can't knock on that. But I
right.
do think that it goes a little deeper than just the child abuse. And that is the fact that most of these troubled teen schools are going off the SYNANON curriculum, and they don't realize it. Because like you said, it's been rebranded, and they haven't done the research to know that like the game at SYNANON equals raps at a troubled teen school. Like
Yeah,
not
it's
everybody
like,
knows that. You know what I mean?
it's like the common core of psychological abuse or something. You know, it's a foundation in schools that people are sending their children to.
Yeah.
In modern, you know, current time.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the other things that I considered like probably one of the worst things there, which it actually was kind of cool because I had to see how strong I could be, but they called us solo. So we did a 10-day excursion. We rock climbed, we summited the highest peak in the Selkirks. It was really fun. But for 3 of those days, you were put on a solo in the woods, and you were alone, isolated in the woods, which, you know, that's pretty cool, but pretty weird. And like my thing was, I wouldn't have had a problem with it, except we weren't allowed to have food.
Yeah.
So 3 days in the woods, you get hungry in the woods. There's elements, and you're camping, and you want to eat something to stay warm. And I'll never forget, like, one of the nights waking up from a nightmare, like, I was dreaming about breakfast at, like, IHOP. And
Right.
I woke up and I was like, there's no IHOP. I'm in the woods with no food.
Yeah.
But, and then I remember after that fasting, like, eating as much food as I could, and then getting sick. And then, like, I also remember being isolated in the woods for 3 days. When you go around other human beings, like, everything's weird. Like, they look weird. Like, it's weird to see people after isolation for that long in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's part of it too.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of lost friends that I would dedicate all of this to my friends that have passed away, and they would probably want me to do this for them because they didn't make it, you know, and they don't have a voice right now. They're dead.
Right.
You can't undo being dead, and they could not get away from the torment, you know? And that's just like sad. And I think the other most important, I mean, I think the number one most important is any kids that are in there right now, we need to get them out. Period. Right. I'm not talking about just legislatively, like, yeah, let's change the laws. And if Paris needs help with that or anything like that, she could reach out and I'll help and stand behind that with my group of close friends also supporting. But also beyond that, like I want to figure out a way to like really call attention, like right now, to each specific school, put them on blast to the point where they're going to get so uncomfortable they're not even going to have them open anymore, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And
yeah,
you know, you're going to find that a lot of these people who have abused children are going to face accountability.
Well, that's
So,
the trick, is for any predator to make them uncomfortable,
yeah,
to
make
them completely not okay with what they're doing, and not
predators uncomfortable again.
put
Yeah,
it in such a public eye that they
exactly.
can't operate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain to everybody what why it's called Breaking Code Silience? Like, what does that actually mean to someone who went to one of their schools?
I haven't ever really thought about that because I don't know if Breaking Code Silience sounds very like in touch to me of what.
Wasn't code silence like a non-disclosure thing though?
I never heard that word there,
Okay.
but I would interpret it to be basically like, and maybe that's the word they used at Provo. I'm not sure, which is where Paris went, which I heard was really, really bad too. But the Breaking Code Silience kind of, I think it's kind of like we're breaking out of you guys telling us we can't talk about this.
Right.
We're breaking out of, if I didn't go there, I'd be dead. Or the brainwashing and the feelings of guilt, like you're turning your back on your friends or the staff if you speak up. Because again, Stockholm.
Right.
I mean, I have tons of counselors on my Facebook page, and some I love, some of them I know who they really are, but I watch them and like, you know, some of them have apologized. I think some of the most inappropriate things were like them letting men work there with no background checks.
Mm-hmm.
People having no psychological training whatsoever. So they would bring in someone at an entry level and put them through the program, and that was their training. And I personally know staff members that are just as traumatized because they went through the program.
Right.
And so, like, part of it that they really should have watched out for was predators, as in I'm talking pedophiles.
Right.
Yeah. You cannot have people working around kids without a background check, at least.
No. And it's not just me. Other girls I know that went there, they had things called smushing, where everybody would lay on the floor like this, like a head on a stomach, a head on a stomach, a head on a stomach, which that's really weird. You're like laying your head on someone's stomach and their crotch is like right there, right? They called it smushing. So it's like a whole sea of people laying on the floor like this, but staff members were in there, like adults and men, right?
Yeah.
And then they would play like these crazy songs that would get people all emotional, like You Left Me Just When I Needed You Most, and like Landslide, and just really like emotional songs. So people would just be crying and crying. And then it'd be time to go to bed, and everybody would get up and hug each other. I can count at least 2 men that I know right now that are still alive, and they are on Facebook, who would hug me while they were excited, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't want to say this because people are going to get really mad at me, but it's the goddamn truth. Like, you could tell that that's like pushing into your hip or whatever. Like, you know, really gross. Like, that's creepy.
Yeah.
And people are gonna hate me for saying that.
They are not. I mean, it's your truth. If they hate you for your truth and your experience, let them hate.
Yeah, anybody who's gonna hate you for that, I mean, you don't need it.
Right. I'm just lucky and glad that I wasn't sexually abused or raped there. Like, truly, now after looking back, I just feel so thankful that it wasn't worse.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Ernie stepped away. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
But Ernie gets triggered, and you know it's all part of the MK Ultra stuff. And,
yep.
And different people, different things happen to them when they get triggered.
Oh yeah, no, I understand. I just don't want to like upset him too much.
Oh no, you're not gonna upset him.
Very good.
But I understand.
You're good. He'll be all right.
Have you gone back to that place ever since you left it?
One time.
Just the location.
Yeah, I went in 2000. Yeah, 2000. I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, and I went back and visited the staff and visited the school. And see, at this point, I was still in the mindset of that place changed my life, or saved my life. And so I was never completely broken, brainwashed into their system, but they did break me a little bit into kind of thinking that I hadn't processed everything. I was still kind of like Stockholm, like, but when I went there, I remember telling the kids that were complaining, like, just be happy you have a roof over your head. Just be happy you have food to eat. Because I know that's what I was happy for when I was there after, like, running away from home and not having that security. So I would just try to tell the kids there to focus on the gratitude of, like, what they could, you know? Like,
Right.
which is, like, running water. And that's really sad. But I was trying to just kind of help them focus on gratitude.
What age do you think that you became aware that you were actually abused?
I don't know, because even right now, like, I have a little voice in my head saying, like, you're a wuss if you act like that place abused you. You know what I mean? So I think I always knew I was abused, but I had that whole thing in my head again that was like, it saved your life. It saved your life. So I think it wasn't until like a few years ago, really. And then I think the final thing that like hit me in the face with it was my near-death experience with the stomach precancer. And it really lit a fire under my ass, because I had always been kind of curious about, like, was that place good? Was that place bad? People are going to hate me if I think it's bad. People are going to hate me if I think it's good. And again, there were positive things about it. But I think when I had a near-death experience, I really started digging and digging and digging, because I knew there was more behind it. And then as soon as I started digging into it, Paris Hilton did the thing. So that was a really weird coincidence.
Well, that was around the time that you started telling us about it.
Yeah.
So who knows how hacked, your messages are or whatever. I know we didn't tell anybody, but
Right. No, but I mean, at the same time, it could have been some weird coincidence, or I don't know, maybe those websites are tracking who's looking into their pages. I don't even know. I don't want to like.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they watched everybody who came out of that school after they came out, especially the ones that they thought might be talking about it later, but not to make.
Well, that's the scary part for me, is I sometimes think that there are people at that school that, if you have this kind of view, you might really piss them off.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're all being exposed right now. Now is the perfect time to just go strong, because, I mean, we are an army, and the more people that we wake up and get to realize and see that it's happening right in front of their face. And it could be even happening, to someone young that's watching this now, that's like, oh my gosh, I'm in a school like that. And that is fucked up. I knew that was messed up, and then it empowers them to, break their silence and tell their parents next time they're home on, vacation from their boarding school or whatever. And that's how we can together start to, completely dismantle the foundations that have been built off of CEDU and their philosophies and their way of re-education.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the scariest part about us being there was just knowing that nobody in the whole world knew we were there.
Yeah.
So it's like, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to protest.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I would say that being in a place like that where your peers will turn you in for it's like having a narcissistic parent. Like, somebody's going to turn you in for something to make themselves look good, right? Like,
Right.
So you got to throw somebody under the bus. So the kids are always throwing each other under the bus.
Right.
And that's like almost more dangerous than actual prison, because at least in prison, everybody's against the man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
not everybody's ratting each other out. You know what happens in prison when you do that. So it was almost more scary because there were no bars. The bars was the mental prison they put you in, and the in conjunction with the medications they forced you to take.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever give you medications by needle?
No, but I was talking to my friend about that earlier, and apparently at like Provo Canyon, where Paris was, I think that was a little bit more of a mental institution where they would like shoot people up with Thorazine and stuff.
They shot you up with Thorazine?
Not me, but I'm saying at a different school. But so the thing about my situation is that my parents were like upper middle class, not millionaires. And my mom spent half the time I was there on the phone with the insurance companies. And my parents really needed it to be paid for by the insurance company. So they had to prove that it was a mental facility. So in order to prove it was a mental facility, they had to prove that I had to be on drugs. So for 2.5 years, I was experimented on with every single drug known to man from A to Z, like a guinea pig, in order to show the insurance company, see, our daughter needs to be there. She's on medication. She's crazy. So, and that's actually very illegal. And when I asked that to, when I said to the counselor, I know when I was off medication and you gaslighted me, it was the same exact time that my parents thought they were going to have to pull me out of school because they ran out of money. You put me on medication, remember, so we could try to get the insurance company to cover it. She looked at me and said, don't you know that's illegal? I was like, of course I know I know that's illegal. She's like, we wouldn't do that.
Right.
So the after effects of that were me going to college, studying psychology, trying to learn these tactics, trying to learn what they did to my brain, trying to learn how could I be the best version of me after going through all that? And how could I start to unravel this, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then like when I got into like hemp and all that, it's just another way of like being a part of a movement that's going to make a difference in the world, you know? So I think that one thing that came out of that school is like my tenacity and my critical thinking. And I'm not easy to like convince of, you know, like a lot of people are easily brainwashed is what I'm trying to say. And it's,
yeah.
You know,
You're not as easily brainwashed.
I don't have like a tinfoil hat on, but like I'm not going to be indoctrinated very easily.
Right. Exactly.
And I don't think that I was ever very genuine. I think I was going through their steps. I mean, yeah, I processed emotions genuinely, but I think a lot of times it was the fear of getting in trouble if I didn't like do or say the things that they wanted me to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you feel like taking any questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Anybody has any questions for Laura? Spit them out.
I don't know if they will.
You okay, Ernie?
Ernie, you good?
Ernie, you good?
You guys mic off.
I'm good.
Okay. Oh, Larry has something to say about cannabis because, you know, we should add who you are in. Duke said something cool.
Yeah.
You guys are the sleeping giant that has been woken up. Going to be an exciting year, not for the pesos.
The pesos.
What?
The pesos.
The pesos. He said pesos. Here you go. I think Ernie's having a problem.
It's hard and it's rough for me because I don't want to trigger people either.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's trigger warnings out there, you know.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So, but yeah, Larry is talking about the cannabinoid receptor stuff that, goes hand in hand with this MK Ultra and how it helps to break that spell, basically, because it is a spell,
Yeah, lines.
I am loaded on cannabinoids every day, like CBD, CBC, and CBG specifically.
Yeah.
I would say they've helped me a lot, for sure.
And are you doing the lion's mane mushroom as well?
Oh my gosh, I had a fermented hemp oil with lion's mane. It was so amazing. I went through the tincture so fast. It was great.
Oh, you'll have to send me the link for that.
I think I'm gonna have it up on my website when it launches. So
yeah, Laura has a website, and we'll pin all that. People were asking if you have a Cash App too.
Hey, I'm a startup. I don't know. We can get into that later, but if people were to donate, it would probably be to donate towards the hemp movement.
All right.
And also trying to get exposure to these schools, like maybe showing up at their freaking property and protesting. Like, if that's what it's going to take. Like, I wish when I was there, people showed up and were out there with signs and stuff.
Yeah.
Because, like,
I think it's actually going to take people doing class action lawsuits. I think it's going to take parents getting together and, like that school did illegal things to you. And all schools are doing some things that are illegal that could actually open the door to a lot of change. When the schools start getting sued for mistreating kids and breaking the law, then that's when the schools start behaving.
Waking up. Well, the sad part is like the only person that has money is Mel Wasserman's wife. I don't know if she's still alive. But like most people like sued them for everything they had. But the schools that are still in, for sure. But like the Mad Hemster, I think, is going to take a percentage because my company is going to, like, funds are going to be used to empower other people, and a percentage of it is going to ultimately go to either backing up legislative change or like any type of movement we can start to help the kids that are in there now.
Right. I really want to get you together with Donna Serafina. She did a lot of huge, like, legislative things for the cannabis industry in California when all that changed over. And I think you guys should meet each other and get to know each other. So remind me to hook you up with Donna.
Okay. And for that last question, if like my family is understanding,
yeah,
the answer is 100% no. They shipped me away. I disappeared. I came back. 2 months after I graduated, my mom took my college fund and moved to LA. She told me not to be a martyr. And to this day, it gets rubbed in my face how much money was wasted on me by sending me there. So not only do I have to live with the CPTSD and the anxiety disorder on a daily basis, which has manifested into autoimmune disorders, by the way, but like I have to live with that. But then I also have to live with people being angry at spending so much money on me going there, which is like misdirected because they should be angry at the school for taking that much money for something like that, but it gets put on me.
Right. Or themselves for being duped into it.
And then also I'm expected to be, the second I graduate, I just be this fixed person.
Right.
When in reality, it did more harm than good. So I was like under this pressure to be perfect while I'm like trying to undo this crazy stuff that they programmed me with.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the results from the school has delayed your financial or business successes? Like
results? What do you mean?
like delayed any of your entrepreneurships because of just the scars from the abuse? Has it affected you in being able to have a normal life or to stay focused on one thing or any of those things that often come with abuse?
I think that being an entrepreneur is the one thing I've truly used to escape and actually use some of the good tools that were given to me there. So I would say that starting businesses for me has kind of been actually my escape. And
Right.
maybe that like fight mode that I had to be in for 2.5 years, like being as strong as I could, I think has really, sometimes being an entrepreneur, it can make or break you. People they don't really understand what that means. And like, there are times being an entrepreneur where you want to give up. And that school taught me one thing, that I'm very strong and I'll never give up. So that's one good thing that came from it, is I'm a strong, you know what?
And you are a successful businesswoman. And, you know, I kind of worded it that way to not be leading kind of thing, you know. And so
yeah, I think that it was the perseverance, because, you know, I've started 19 businesses and one of them ended up being a multi-million-dollar business. And like, just that perseverance of trying again and trying again and trying again. One of my favorite things about that place was teaching us to climb mountains and hike and rock climb. And, you know, that's not all bad stuff, you know.
No, it's great stuff. I mean, I would like look at the brochure and be like, oh man.
I know, like,
if I had $60,000,
other parts, they just saw this like really cool camp for kids.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
in Sunset Magazine, like in the 90s, you know, like let's send them there. So
yeah, which goes back to even if the brochure looks fabulous, parents, you know, like get in there.
Be careful. That's the advice would be for parents, because look, if your kid is on drugs, if your kid overdosed, you want what's best for them and you're desperate. And the last thing you want is probably to send them away. Mm-hmm. But these people are very convincing. Mm-hmm. They're very good at marketing. And what you need to ask is the questions like, who works here that has a background or a PhD? Who, you know, what is the daily curriculum? I want to see the dorms. I want to see the buildings. I want, you know, really make the schools uncomfortable, push them. Don't just go on the tour where they show you, oh, these kids are so happy eating lunch. No, exactly. Go look around in the lunchroom and see if you see any kids sitting in corners that could possibly be on isolated, like, you know, like punishments. Like, look for signs. Because it's not going to be out in the open. And those kids that are in trouble know that if they say, they're doing this to me, then they know they're going to just be put in more trouble. They're not going to be helped. So the kids aren't going to speak up. So just look for clues, ask questions.
Yep. Exactly. Were you going to say something, Ernie?
Hold on 1 second.
Laura and Ernie put a smile on my face.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time coming to talk about this. Even after this whole long time, my heart's still racing. And like, to the people that are going to hate on me and try to unfriend me and like maybe bitch me out, like some people I know, some people I don't, like maybe just try to talk to me first.
Right.
Because I'm very nervous right now and some things could be misconstrued. So like, instead of just like blasting me, like anger, like we've all had enough of that. Like, let's try to be kind to each other. And if you have something to say that you think I might be offended by, just go ahead and ask me. Just try to be kind. That's all I ask, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You're doing awesome. And I'm so proud of you. I mean, we've talked about this for over a year. So, you know, like the viewers don't even really realize how big and powerful and awesome of a moment this is. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Proud of you guys too.
Okay, somebody, can you guys hear me good?
Yeah.
Somebody's roboted.
What's that?
Somebody's roboted.
Okay, it ain't now. Laura, you talk. Let me see if it's you. Never mind, it ain't you.
I heard it just for a brief moment, but I
I
think
did too. I heard it in a minute. There's frequencies coming in and out, I think. But anyways, so guys, I'm just going to be honest with you. There's certain trigger words that sometimes it affects me a lot. There's things in life that are yet to be discovered. I'll just be honest with you. You know, listening to Laura's story, mine's something similar, but a little bit more different. Mine was a more physical. Mine was a more of a physical kind of trait, pretty much. From me being a kid, I mean, you can imagine just like waking up and people be fighting outside and people have guns and knives and you know who your family is and you know they don't care to shoot no one, and of course, and going through that, I mean, you can imagine at the age in the 8th grade with my dad, my dad shot this guy's brains out, and I went to school that, and everybody was saying, they was calling me Shotgun Shell, it was like, and then you have this guy that my dad had killed his uncle, and he was in the same grade as I was, and it was always, turmoil there, and there was sort of a fight, and you had to fight your way through everything, and then all of a sudden, I was outside at my dad's yard like 2 weeks after that, and I was just playing in the yard. I mean, just a kid. I mean, we playing with a puppy. Matter of fact, we get ready to train him to go coon hunting, and I found that guy's teeth laying in the yard. So I mean, it was it's a hard kind of life to live.
Terrible.
I've had a lot of things happen to me causing my dad and what my dad was exposed of, being who my dad was, and I don't. It's a good way to get to government after you're out here just doing that, just talking about him. But look up my dad. You don't see nothing about him at all. You can't find nothing about my dad because they hid it. Yeah, they hid it. They hid all my stuff about my dad. Try to find out where my dad killed that man. You can't find it nowhere on the internet. They hid it. They hid it because he was their main guy, go-to guy. My dad was.
Wow.
So that's hid. That's hid.
Right.
And being in a part of that, my dad was one of the last ones in the 70s in the 78 who was exposed to that. So I was born in 79. And that was just a blood trait, family curse. But
you are similar in you had the most extreme abuses, like you're physical and in the darker things, and you're is mental, without that physical. So your situations are very much, same age, time period, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but still, you can't find nothing. You can go back and you can say, you can look up murders and stuff that happened in the 50s and the 60s, but you won't find nothing on my dad, what he done. You won't find it.
What was crazy was after the research I was doing, and then Paris Hilton coming out with the Breaking Code Silience, the website CEDUlegacy.org was taken down.
mm-hmm.
And it had a lot of breakdown on what went on in the Prophets, like step by step. It had the manifestos. It had the art the kids did. I mean, like, it would literally step by step walk you through each workshop, and then somebody tore it down.
I think it was
it's not easy finding information on your schools that is bad information.
I mean, it's out there.
We've had to dig.
It's very, very surface level when you find
when
it.
When I was in St. Charles, they would take like the kids, because we young. I mean, we was 15, 16, maybe a little bit older. I mean, and they would take the girls and then they would put us up against, they would put the girls in front of us, and they would like let the girls, I mean, this is like weird. This is weird as hell. And I didn't, back then it was, you're a kid. You're really a kid. You don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But they would take the girls and they would put them in front of you, and let the girls let you talk to them all day long. You sit and talk to them. And then they would take the girls away, and then you wouldn't see these people for like maybe 3 or 4 days at a time, and then you would just they would put them back, and then they would be you would have these projects you had to do, but then they would drug you up. I was on Zoloft, Buspar, Tegretol, Clonidine, Depakote, and I was on it like 3 or 4 times a day, and I walk around literally like a freaking zombie.
Yeah.
And you just didn't know, everybody would just be walking in, and we was kids. I mean, we were really kids. And then I remember I had a really bad overreaction to one of them. They took me off something that's supposed to put me back on it. They put me back on it, and it was just awful. It was just like really, really awful. And I remember walking by, and I'm sitting here looking at this clock, and I'm getting mad. I'm getting like angry, and I don't really understand why, but I am. And they're making you go to these therapy classes where you're all pretty much just on this. You're medicated, and they take, and if you don't, and they try to start trouble with you, and then they would throw you in this big old room and lock you up, and you would be there for hours and hours and hours at a time. So
It's awful.
So it was wild, but I was a kid. I was a kid. When I got out, they had a bracelet around my ankle, and it was crazy. So,
Jeez.
but I had to wear a monitor, and they didn't want to let me go anywhere. And then when I first turned 18, when I turned 18, they took it off and everything for that. But that is, that's a lot happened. When they found out they always knew who my dad was. They would put us through. They'd have people like with my mom. My mom was the state police and stuff would come talk to my mom, and they would be like talk to her, and they gave her PCP and angel dust, and they found out her coverage because she was helping with take this one person down. I don't know. My family was all in like law enforcement, and my papa's brother was a police officer, and then everybody was. It was bad. It was really bad. And I remember when they first put me on these little bitty tiny. It was real tiny, but it was real powerful. And at the same time, I wouldn't go to sleep. They would put me on like this Ativan, and they would have to give me this Ativan. Ativan just knock you dead out. And then, but the other drugs you was on, and the medication you was on, it would destroy you. It was just like it would just destroy you. And then when I got out, before I actually got out, when I finally got out, actually, I had to go back to school. I went back to high school, and I was in the 9th grade then, and they put me in the 9th grade, and I took in 1 year. I took 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th in 1 year, and they was letting me do, and I was like, I was changed, of course, because I didn't want to ever go back to that again. But I had student of the year. I won that. I was on the academic team. But then what hurt later on in life was when my dad, of course, in 2018, my dad passed away, and everybody knows well. But with 2013, my brother done the stuff he done. Me and my dad kind of fell out. My dad told me, he was like, "You take a weapon, I'll take a weapon. We'll do it like we did, like our old family used to do it. We'll put our backs to each other. We'll take 10 paces. We'll turn and fire. We don't need no media. We don't need nothing. Just you and I." And that's what my dad said. Well, my dad killed the fella when I was in 9th grade. When I was 8th grade. And when he shot the guy, when he blew the guy's brains out way down with a shotgun. My brother got into trouble. My dad was going to whip him, and I took up for my brother because my dad whipped him with a dog chain. And
Jeez.
he was getting ready to go whip him again, and I got in front of him. I took up for my brother. And I remember he pulled a 38 out and put it in my face. And he said, "You ain't my son." He said, "I don't believe you're my son anyways." And he said, what's to keep me from shooting you like that?" And
Ugh.
I said, "Dad, I ain't like you. Things are different between you and I." And I said, "I am your son." And I remember I put my hand up on the barrel. I remember touching the barrel with my finger. As I touched the barrel, I just moved it out of my face. And I turned my back and walked away. I always respected my dad. I always did. My dad was a dangerous man, though. My dad was very, very dangerous. My dad would go into, to the county attorney, and he would throw a pistol down on the desk and dare him to do anything. I mean, even the state police. I don't care. People tell you who my dad was. I mean, but people know what my dad would do. My dad was that. He was that person. He was the person to, put you out of this world if you didn't do what he wanted or whatever. But anyways, he, when my dad, I didn't know my dad. I know my dad was dying, but I didn't know he was going to die today. And I hadn't been there in a while. And I just happened to stop by my dad's house, and my dad was dying. My dad was really dying. And he told me he loved me, and one of the kids wasn't there, and he said, "I'm not going to die right this year." And he fought it and fought it and fought it. I mean, my dad would go to the doctor, and they would talk to him. Hold on a second. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. I always respect your military. Always. Because they're the ones that really get in it, especially if it's ones that spend out there and
their jobs
with it. That's funny. When my dad was in a wreck. Before my dad died, he was in a wreck, and he was thrown through the windshield. My dad was thrown through the windshield and onto the other vehicle, and he went to the doctor. He had a broke leg, and the doctor was like, "I give you so many days to live." Well, my dad lived another 2 or 3 months, and then he'd go back to the doctor and he says, "I don't know what's keeping you alive." He's like, "You already be gone." And then it was just crazy. And he would always tell the doctor, like, "It ain't my time to go. I ain't going. I ain't going anywhere anyways." Because my dad was a fighter. My dad was a huge fighter. Hell, my dad once said that he wanted to be thrown out of an airplane, complete another jump or something. I don't even know. And we was like, "Are you going to pull the chute?" "Yeah, I'll think about it, But I'm like, good God, man. And then when he died, he was sitting there, and we was all there. I mean, it was just, I don't know how it happened, but we were just there. And he was waiting on my sister to get back up. They went and done something to go get some more people. And as they was coming in, and, he was dying, and he was like, but it was like the thing went off. It, and we had people there, and it's had a little monitor thing on his hand, and all of a sudden, he just, they pronounced him dead. I mean, literally. I mean, the guy was walking over, he was dead, and they said Zach or somebody's coming was his son, and it just like like he lived, like he just can't, like he just, I don't know. It was just so weird. And then, of course, he waited to tell him he loved him before he died. And gone.
Wow.
And then, I don't know, it just, but my dad, if you want to look at who my dad is, I mean, he once shot a guy off a motorcycle. I mean, like, he shot the guy literally with a sawed-off shotgun off the back of the motorcycle because my mom killed him. And then my uncle was already going to prison, already jumped, and my uncle had shoved the axe handle up a dude's ass and left him on the railroad track. So I mean, he was already going to prison, and he was like, "Well, I'll take it from here and we'll go, I'm already going. I'll just add it on to mine. And back then, hell, you get his bloody Harlan. I mean, good God, man. It was just something. It was just, you can imagine just growing up in that and living through that and having to be just everything. I mean, and then them finding out with the government shit that was all involved in it. I mean, even when I was divorced and then they're trying to get back together with, my ex, and they was infiltrating her, and then it's like they are now. I mean, I know who's behind and all that, and they tried to get me to have another baby. They want another kid because they could take the kid and do what they want to do with the kid. I mean, my brother already gave his DNA and shit up to him and everything. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that happens behind closed doors, guys. It's not what it seems. It's not what it seems.
And that goes into the genetic targeting, and
well, my great grandpa, he lived to be 134 years old. John Shell. I mean, look at him. I mean, it all ties in. Doc's Holiday, it ties in. It, guys. I mean, it's nothing. I mean, everybody's always like, even as a kid, my papa would tell me stuff. Hell, the damn shotgun that John Shell had is above the mantle. The old shotgun that he used, it's in them pictures and everything, is above the mantle in the house. I mean, so, and he met, he was in all the wars. He was in the wars. He was riding a horse and, I mean, doing through that. I mean, he remembers all this. He remembered all that stuff. I mean, there's legacies of that. So, people want to, derail it and say it didn't happen or whatever. But if you follow my family bloodline back through, you see all this. I mean, you're like, it's wild.
I'm just proud of you for taking your upbringing and turning it around into protecting people. I think that's something to, that's really brave and amazing that now you protect the vulnerable and the weak.
Well, it's like, as a kid, that was natural for me. That was natural. It wasn't nothing to think. Nothing. I mean, you'd be sitting there when I was a little bitty kid, like 9 years old, and I'd be coloring a coloring book or something like that. My uncle would walk through, and he was like, yeah, we got into it, and I shot this guy, shot his eyebrow off, and you're like, and you're seeing this as a kid, and it's like, it's okay. It's okay. I understand what my little brother got, what got into his mind, but he got with the wrong people, of course, and it happened. So.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like Laura is taking her experience and now trying to come forth to share her story, because all of this early childhood trauma is the cause for it is still going on today. Everything that happened then is still going on today, and it is our stories and letting people understand what we're made of, why we do what we do.
We would take stun. I mean, we were literally, as a kid, we'd take stun guns. We played with stun guns, guys. I mean, because it built us up. I mean, it was just nothing, a limb or switch. That would, we would take stun guns and like hit each other. Yeah, and that ain't right. I mean, that ain't. But that's what that's just the way life was and everything.
I mean, as a kid, you don't know you're doing wrong. That's the thing.
Yeah. And
it's like she didn't think at school anything was being done wrong. She was the one who was wrong, even though she had that rebel self.
In St. Charles, they would take certain ones of us. It's gone now, and they would take and put little bands around your fingers. And they would have these TENS units, and they would put it on like a burst, where it's like, and it would go up your hands, and they would make your hands would just draw up but they would see what level and how high the level that you could go. And it's like now I can take a 10 unit now, put it anywhere on me, turn it up, and it don't even bother me. It's like, it's like when I've been tased like 3 times. I'll say this, 2 times I gave consent. So it's just like when they would adapt your body to it, and it was crazy. It was really, really just like crazy. Like they would dip you in. They would put this this application on wherever they was going that way. When they put these pads on you and everything, and they would sit here and they'd have pads here. I've got pictures, and they'd have pads like on my. I did have pictures. I'm still find them probably. And they would put them on your arms and everything, and they would just turn it up, and they would just let you. And they would like, tell me when it hurts. And, of course it freaking hurts. It hurts the first time they turn it up. And then they would like, turn it off. And then you sit there. And then they would turn it up again. And then they would go to like level 3, then level 4. It would go to 10. And
so
then
for that, like on a medical standpoint, you're getting traumatized, which hits your central nervous system. And then at the same time, your central nervous system is getting hit with electricity. So it's like double traumatizing. You know what I mean? Like your system is like taking a shock on all levels.
Well, they would let it go on for like 5 to 10 seconds, and they would turn it off. And your body would automatically, you would like tense up. And then all of a sudden you would let loose. And then they were like, okay, we're going to do it again. And you'd already be ready to tense up, but they wouldn't do it. And then as soon as they got talking, they'd hit you with it when you wasn't expecting it. And it would just, your body would just like your muscles and everything would just tense and tighten. And I don't know, it was weird. And they would make you stand in this like jail. You would stand in this jail, that way it could duck better. And you would get the full effect out of it. And then,
well, that's a lot. That sounds awful. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
And then they would sit and they would hold you down, like, and they would just like, they would hold you down and they would like just scream as loud as they could in your face. And it would just,
Laura,
it would break you. It would break you in a way, but it would make you stronger. It really would. And then my dad, he would always get me. He would like, no matter what you go through in life, what don't kill you only makes you stronger. Remember that. And then he would just, he would do these experiments like where, you like get in there and get a dog and see how long you can hold its mouth shut. And it'd be an older dog or something like that. And they're powerful. And they would bite you as soon as it would, and it would automatically bite you and you'd be bit. And, he would try to make you just, I don't know. It was just a lot of stuff.
So it's like what my experience was, like you said, psychological to break you. Yours was physical to break you. But the ultimate goal is to break you down, to try to program you to be another person than you are.
Well, it's both extremes of MK Ultra. So you guys have 2 different extremes of basically the MK Ultra program.
Well, and the whole time, and even when you abuse stuff and everything, that's afterwards, Tina. Good God. Like when they found out and you actually signed a dotted line and they bring these like needles in, and it's like it's a pin, it's a circulated needle, and it's like got different kind of things in it, and all they got to do is brush by you and just touch you with it, and then you're like, it's crazy. It's just, for the longest time, I had it. You remember I showed it to you, Tina?
Yeah.
On my hand, I had it, and it was like all of a sudden, and they would before and everything, it was just, it did, guys. It damaged me. It did. And then they would get to my ex, and then when I tried to get back with her, she would, I don't know. She just, it made it worse. I would have to be sitting there cuddled up with her, laying there, just loving her and everything. I loved her. And then all of a sudden she would look over at me and she'd be like, I'm trying to get you this cologne or something like that. And oh, that's cool. Thank you, honey, sweetie. And then she'd be like, yeah. And then she named another guy. Another guy wears it. And it would just like break you down inside. You didn't want nothing to do with them. And then they would have, it was just crazy. It was like.
So somebody asked what MK Ultra is.
Yeah.
MK Ultra originated,
there's different forms of it.
From Nazis. And it's basically mind control, but there's a lot of elements to it.
Different levels, and
there's a lot of levels. A lot of it has to do with torture and splitting your mind into different parts so that you have multiple personalities.
Or like breaking your psyche down to plant programs into the subconscious mind, and then triggers so that they could make people into super soldiers by triggering them and the person not knowing what the trigger is.
Well,
Yeah, it's like somebody said earlier, a lot of times you don't even know when you're being triggered.
Yeah, and then it just happens.
well, my family, my mom, there was a lot of like, people don't believe this and everything, and people don't know this about her family, but there was a lot of the masonry, and there was a lot of masons. Papa was a mason, and there was a lot of old timey witchcraft and old timey stuff that went on. Like my mom took part of a lot of things, and she don't now, of course, but I've seen her do things. I mean, it was just amazing. Like when we was in South Carolina, we visited South Carolina there.
Sorry.
We was in Cowpens, and if anybody knows what Cowpens is in witchery, you would know that the history of all that with that, and they would burn witches into stakes and stuff like that. I mean, like Cowpens is. Look up Cowpens, South Carolina, guys, and Lori, your cat bombed the video.
I know. She's laying here. She's like, pay
Your robot.
attention to me.
I'm robot. I think
Somebody's robot. Nina Xander, your robot.
Yeah.
Anyways, but they would. Well, I mean, I'll give you example. I'll give you examples. Some of the stuff I remember. When I was 3 year old, and I was on my little bicycle, and I was at my uncle's, my uncle's down the hill from my mama's, and that was the time when the bands and stuff would run, and I was just out on my little bike. I had a little red bike. I got a picture of it. I've actually got a picture of this, and I was gone for 3 days. Nobody knows what happened. I don't hardly remember anything. I don't know what happened, but I do know that the only thing I could see from these people was this, like their arms and stuff, and like, they had like this stuff drawn over on their arms. But I never could see their faces because, I mean, I don't know if they just blocked it out or what, but all I could see was just like the writing and stuff on their arms, and it was just the thing. It happened, and I remember being found, and I think my mom said I was like found at the church or something. So I was. I don't remember it hardly because I was just a baby. But there was a lot with me. Even, I mean, it goes into a lot, guys. We'll talk about that another time. I mean, we can sit here and talk hours and hours and hours on it. But
2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, I know. We're at 2 hours and 15 minutes.
It's a long one.
There's so much to cover, though. That's why we said we got to just, start just having chats with each other and let people, learn from our experiences.
And we can go into other episodes where we can pull up screenshots and read things from the internet and like actually try to connect the dots for people to try to maybe understand why I might have some of these weird theories. And like I said again, like I know I brought up some weird crap like adrenochrome. I'm not saying it happened.
Well,
I'm
it's
saying,
like
there's weird stuff to think about.
When I was 7 years old, everything that happened in a little town. People would get together and help people. I remember when I would be playing and there would be actual Indians coming out of the hollers, and we would play hide and go seek with the Indian children. And, you can imagine playing, just playing hide and go seek for, just years at a time with them, growing up with Indians and stuff. Your tracking abilities would just be wow, because you would learn with them too. You would actually learn and stuff. You would learn a lot of it. Right. And we say this, but we don't have that nowadays. I remember when the Ku Klux Klan would march down the highways. They would march down the highways carrying them. I mean, that is true. Right down below where I lived at. Right down below where I grew
Aaron
up.
brought him up tonight. Aaron was talking about the KKK.
That's awful.
Right down below where I was raised, there's a place called. It's right down below it. It's called Stretch Neck, And the Grand Master of the Ku Klux Klan lived there. You can look it up. It's on Google. Look it up. And it wasn't even just a half a mile from where I was at. We used to go down. We would play basketball in the foot of it, and we would go from there. I mean, you can imagine. I mean, people all the time. People would come down. You know, it was just a weird vibe. It was a weird, experience altogether. I mean, we just had people all the time. You were subjected to this, you were subjected to that. You know, there was devil worshiping and stuff. I mean, one of our friends. I mean, I remember when we was the first time I ever seen anything with a Ouija board. He had a Ouija board there, and there was 3 or 4 people playing on it, and then I never would fool with it, and I got away from it.
Yeah,
Something told me to get away from it, and then he didn't know, and he started. It was like really, really bad, and he was like just cussing it out and everything. You know, he's like, "Well, if this is that, tell me when I'm going to die." You know, like that. Well, he died 3 months after that. He caught testicle cancer, and he was just a kid. He was just it was in high school, and people remember who he was if I say his name, but I'm not going to say his name. But you know, it was just wow. You know, you see all this happening and everything, and then you have so much drugs and stuff that's in there, and then you see your classmates dying off. I mean, they died off in school. They died off in.
That's
Yep.
I mean, it's true. I mean, it's just like so bad. It was so bad. They would dip me into this jail, like I said, and it would just, they would run these prods in, and it would just like shock the living hell right out of you. In your mind, all you'd be seeing is like, wow, and it would just like, and it would just make you just like, and it would just like, and they would hit you like, woo, woo, and they would hit it, and they would hit it, and it would, they'd turn it off and everything. And it was just, I mean, I can still feel that in it sometimes, but it makes me more powerful than what I could ever be, because I mean,
oh yeah.
It's like sometimes I'll be sitting. I mean, you can ask people who actually know me in real life. I'll be sitting, and all of a sudden, like today, it wasn't today. It was a couple months ago when I was at my mom's. A couple months ago I was at my mom's. I did do it again today, but a couple months ago at my mom's, I was just laying there and laying on the couch, and all of a sudden it was just like when it hit. Now, you know, I was just up, and I was like, and my stepdad was looking at me, and he was like, "Are you okay? You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right. I just been through too much." And he knows. I mean, but he's like, "You just got to calm down. You got to calm down," you know. But today, I was at this hotel, and I was laying down, and all of a sudden, you know, I was just thinking of things, because you try to, if you want to remember something, you think back on stuff. And then all of a sudden, it just come across my mind, you know, the little girl thing that we talked about in the TV show, in the Predator Nation show, and it was like, you know, the little girl holding her hands up, and it was like the wrist with the ropes, and I could see it again, but then this little girl's face just turns blood, and it's just dripping down, and then all of a sudden it fast forwards back to my brother, and he's got the gun to my head, and it's like, you know, and it's just sitting there, and you're like, shoot, and it's going through your mind, and everything's just going sharp, like pains through your brain. And then all of a sudden you're like, and then all of a sudden, then the picture of Summer Wells or something shows up in your head. And you're like, and it gives you that drive. It gives you that drive to search. And I mean, you don't get no sleep. You do not get no sleep at all. You're just like, I'll be laying asleep, perfect to sleep, what little sleep I get, and something will come across my mind like, ooh, you know, and it brings back stuff, and I'll sit and I'll get a little notepad. I've got a little notepad for this stuff, you know, about my notebook, and I write stuff down just to keep it in my head, because I remember, because when you get up, you don't never hardly remember your dreams, but I remember each and every one of my dreams. I remember everything that happened. I remember being beat. I remember it. My uncle hated me when we used to play pillow fights and stuff, and he would put whatnots in it, them old-timey whatnots, them cologne bottles. And I remember that's why I've got that place right there. I still got it. You know, I've got this right here. Or he put a rock in a snowball and busted me, and it cut all up here. I remember the girl. I remember I wouldn't hit this one girl. She held me down and took a rock and was beating me in the face with it, but I wouldn't hit her because she was a girl. And it was just like a lot of things. It's like, you know, around my family. I mean, we would have to, my dad was like, if you was in school and he'd come home and he found out you backed down from a fight, oh my God, that's the worst thing you could ever do. Not only would he take his mining belt out and whip you, and he wouldn't whip you with the belt part. He would hit you. He would make sure when he folded, he would fold the belt up in a way the buckle would be in the leather, and he would hit you with the leather part, but you still feel the impact of the buckle.
Oh.
And that was just.
Oh, I like that comment. Thank you.
And I get triggered on it. I ain't, like the other night, I was talking about the bounty hunting days and stuff when James got killed, when James Black got killed, and everybody thought that I was the one that killed James Green. Everybody thought that. I mean, they had it on the thing. They was like, how did it get? Because it said that the department and that shot him. They gathered up around him and surrounded him. And they killed him, but he killed James Black in cold blood. I mean, he killed him in cold blood. It was really, really bad about it and everything. So, I mean, it was really bad. It was a bad deal. He throwed his hands up to like give up, and as James putting his weapon up or backing off and had the crew, the guy come back, turning around, and he turned around, he pulled a weapon and he shot him, and killed him. It was just a big, big blow. It was a big, big blow, and it hit me hard. I mean, here James was he served his country in the war and the military, and he was a Marine, and he had all these new kids. And I remember we would talk. I mean, we was friends. I mean, we was really friends. And he would tell me about his kids, and we would just sit and talk, just message after message. I've got his messages still, and. He was out toward the west, and I was out in the east, and I'd always talk about what's going on over on their side. He would talk about what's going on his side. But anytime we could always go on the Future Recovery Network, and we would talk with each other. That's where I got my brothers at. Duke's one of my best brothers, and we would talk and just learn so much about each other and their places and how we hunt and just different things. And the next thing you know, when he got killed, it was just like, I remember Gene's another one. Gene contacted me and he was like, "Hey, bro," I said, "I already see it, man." I was sitting there looking at this article and I just couldn't believe it just happened. And then Byron got killed. And when Byron got killed, Byron ran out around with Indianapolis. I used to box in India, and I was a box pro in Indianapolis. I had a pro license. And then when Byron got killed, it was just like, he got killed on the wrong reasons. It was just bad. And then all of a sudden, when that happened with James, it was just like one right there, another one was losing life. And then my buddy AJ got killed. He got stabbed, and I told him not to go out. They wanted me to sign it, and I wouldn't sign it. And then he got killed, and I don't know. He got stabbed. And I begged him. I said, "Don't go out for the insurance. Don't do this." It was on Christmas, or it was around Christmas time there. And I said, "Give every one of them the time off. Give them money." And they didn't. They had to go get this freaking fugitive. And I remember when they arrested this fugitive, they brought in SWAT and all this bullshit. And everybody, and they caught him in a bathrobe. I mean, like he was going to be dangerous in a bathrobe when they should have just put more people on it. They talked to 4 and then just let 4 people. And then they wouldn't put more people. I said, do it with 6. Don't do it with 4. That way you got your stuff, covered. And they asked me, they was like, "Are you going to come out and go with it?" I
Kitty wants to love
excuse myself for that on that. Because, I mean, I could have been there for you. I didn't, because it was Christmas time. I want to spend Christmas with my family. What fucking family have I got now? You see what I'm saying? It's like bullshit, because it's motherfucking people, fucking trolls and shit. So, I'm done. I gotta go. I'm done. Thank you.
That's hard. That's a lot to think about.
That's a lot. And I mean, you saw the trigger when it happened.
Yeah.
Like, people need to learn this shit's real, and this shit happens. Like, you had a certain form of super extreme abuse. He had a whole nother form of super extreme abuse, and a lot of times.
It's like someone just said, my cat wants attention, obviously.
I know. I think
just
wanted to hug Ernie or something. Ernie needs might go hug Ernie.
Right? But it's like someone said, we all have trauma.
Yeah.
We've all have our own stories, and we're all survivors. And so, like, it's never like a competition of like who went through more or who went through less. It's like these are all of our experiences. But the bottom line is like we have to stop the biggest sources of these things. You know, yeah, she does. She wants to be famous. I mean, like, bringing me back to you just real quick, there's a huge facility like this in the biggest prime real estate spot in San Francisco. And I can link that up and everything else. And that's not troubled teens. They take drug addicts off the street and they say the more traumatized, the better. And it's free. Yeah. But it's the same program.
Like that, let's get them together. You know, I mean, consciousness is contagious.
Yeah.
And I think that people are starting to show a little more action in their daily things.
Yeah, and we really need to speak up for people that can't speak up for themselves, you know?
We're a little more willing to talk about stuff that they weren't 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's more people hunting predators in their local towns, or, you know, parent catches sleazeball hitting on kid and parent exposes them online. The little things matter, you know, and it's collectively building up. So, and I'm having a little more faith in people. You know, like the trolls, they destroyed like a lot of things, but really they just made us stronger. And they don't even realize it.
They're just like fueling the fire, you know?
I mean, they do the exact same tactics that you were talking about in CEDU. Is, you know, gang up in a little circle, put somebody on a pedestal, and then they just shred them apart, you know, and then they, you know, talk about how ugly their beautifulness is. Like, what a conundrum. I mean, that's all they do is they bounce around and they circle around people, you know, and their pages and their profiles, and they'll even like attack their friends, you know, to say humiliating things that aren't even true. You know, so you have to sit and defend yourself against humiliation all the time, you know, and it's like your whole existence is, you know, for their
put under a microscope.
Exactly. You know, and they get to, you know, sit and judge you when. And
that's why it's so scary for me to talk about it. Like, I'm honestly freaked out right now because I have a lot of good friends that I went to school with, and some of them might get mad at me, and I'm not trying to make anyone mad. And like, if anybody does, I just encourage them to like be kind and try to speak to me because I'm a pretty reasonable person, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, people also need to start understanding that a lot of the people they're abusing are pretty badass survivors of some fucked up sick shit.
The people that are still abusing are survivors.
No, the people that they are abusing online and things like that, and targeting, certain, you know, like us and other tons of other people. You know that, you know, they have to be more mindful about who they attack. They need to realize who they're dealing with. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So, but I definitely want to talk to you more about this. It's been a long live.
And then if anybody like wants to hear like a specific, because what we'll probably do is maybe section some stuff out, do a couple more shows with like screenshots of like showing certain research and stuff. But like, if anybody has any ideas of something that they'd like to know more about, you know, just get a hold of us or put in the comments, and we'll let you know on like the next time we meet.
Awesome.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for helping get me.
Thanks for coming out. Despite
I'm
your nervousness.
so proud of you.
Thanks, you guys. I know it's like I'm gonna look back on it and go, "Oh no," but you know, doing the best I can. So, thanks.
It gets easier. It was really hard for me the first live I went on.
Yeah, it's nerve wracking, and I know how many people he has on here, so I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, I know. The trolls crucified me first one. Like, oh, it was weird and awkward.
It's all right. I got thick skin.
What? What?
I got thick skin.
Yeah. You got the primer. We love you though.
Love you. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.